Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Hey guys, new to the /x/board, but have been watching a lot of Greentext stories lately about paranormal experiences, and have my own short story of something that happened to me little over a year ago. I want to Greentext it, but I'm a little dumb, so just gonna write it like a moron. Be me. 15 years old, living in Sweden in a medium-sized village 3 miles from any towns. I love going out and driving my snowmobile in the winter on the weekends with friends. Parents are gone for the weekend, so I have my friend over to chill. Middle of the winter, so it gets dark really early in the day. Late in the evening, we decided to go out and drive snowmobiles in the dark. I have 2 snowmobiles, so my friend can also drive one. Out driving like idiots, then decide to follow a trail made for snowmobiles that I have taken before. It had been snowing all morning and almost the whole day, so the whole trail was snowed over. Noticed when I go onto the trail that it's a single pair of fresh human footprints following the trail up into the forest. Stops and points the footprints out to my friend, and we both think it's weird because the trail goes straight into the forest, and there are no houses for many miles, and the deep powdery snow is really rough to walk in. Keeps driving on the trail, not thinking much about the footprints, but still following them amongst the trail. Notice that the sky is starting to clear, and the moon is making it a lot brighter outside. Stop to just take in the beautiful night sky and the full moon. No great artificial light out here, so the clear night sky is magical. Get on snowmobiles again, and keep driving for a good 30 minutes, still following the footprints. Then the footprints stop dead in its tracks, and I try to stop my snowmobile, but it was hard because I was driving too fast. Managed to stop right next to where the footprints had stopped. Friend almost drove into me because he didn't see me stop. My friend turns off his snowmobile and walks up to me and asks why I stopped. Just tell him to look at where the footprints end. The footprints had stopped, and you could see what looked like someone had laid down in the snow, and 1 meter around it in every direction was a perfect circle dug out. In total, 4 circles. The holes looked too perfect to have been done with a shovel, and no indication that someone had been around and dug them. When I look at the circles and the snow prints of someone laying down, I get a chill down my whole body. I almost fear nothing I have ever experienced before. I looked at my friend and saw that he looked terrified. I pointed at the circles and asked, "WTF are those?" My friend asked me where could the person that had walked all the way up here had gone. There were no other snowmobile tracks that could have picked the person up or anything. I took a picture of it and we started to examine what the holes were. The entire time we were examining the holes, I was shitting bricks. Told my friend that we should head back. He agreed, and we got back onto our snowmobiles and hightailed it out of there. The whole time that we drove back, I was behind my friend and could not stop looking backwards if we were being followed. Eventually, we got back to my house and had a small discussion about it. We have never talked about it again and just kind of forgotten about it. I wanted to share the story on here and hear your thoughts. Maybe alien abduction. But I don't understand what would motivate someone to walk that far into the woods in deep snow.
I have a set of experiences I'd like to share. I'm going to do my best to Greentext it for the sake of brevity, but I will be reverting to just regular writing format if I need to explain something or just get tired of it. Before we get going, I just want to set the scene here and establish a few things. Firstly, this is not a bullshit paint-by-numbers LARP. That is, has a bunch of guns that poster goes into extraneous detail about, smelled like death, glowing eyes, tactical language, almost human, all of that shit that gives away that it's just some basement dweller pretending they've seen sunlight before. This is something I have actually experienced with my own senses. This is something I have not shared with people close to me. I consider myself to be level-headed and rational. I do not have an explanation for what happened that makes rational sense. For a long time, I convinced myself that these things were dreams, fabricated memories, or just the imagination running loose. I guess I am posting here because 1, this board would probably appreciate it, and 2, I want to put it out there and wash my hands of it. Anyways, enough preamble. Be me. Be Leaf Boy. I live in the suburbs of the city with a huge-ass provincial park in it. The park is dope. A great place to spend summers riding bikes, hiking, and watching wildlife. Winter is awesome too. Ride toboggans down a huge-ass hill at the edge of the park, hit Mach 3 off a snow ramp, make our parents shit their pants. Super fun. Park makes me grow up with appreciation for nature. Has coyotes, porcupines, and skunks. Occasionally they come up from the park and raid garbage and stuff. Takes some getting used to, but not a big deal. Just close your shit up. Be 13 or 14. Summer. Chilling with a kid I know from school. We aren't super close, but for whatever reason, we decide to chill hard and have a sleepover. Doing teenager stuff, riding bikes, getting snacks from the gas station, seeing other kids from school, etc. Get bored of teenager stuff. Friend suggests going down into park. Hell yeah, brother. JPEG. Head down there. Bring a little folding pocket knife. Go down into the park for a few hours, walk around, look at cool stuff, watch some ducks do duck stuff. Friend says it's probably best to go home and jam some vidya. The place is day use only and gets mad spooky at night anyways. Agree. Let's get some Dr. Pepper on the way home. Initiate a plan. On the way home, I arrived at a clearing before a large hill to leave the park. The place we were in the park was on the floodplain, and the clearing we came to was a grassy clearing between the shrubby cottonwood stand and a poplar stand covering the slope of the hill we needed to traverse. The trail was definitely not government approved, just one that locals use to save time getting in and out of the park, getting dimmer at this point. As we hit the clearing, things get quiet. My stomach drops into my asshole. Look at friend. Wide eyes, uneasy expression. He's pale. Decide not to bring up the fact that we both just got freaked out. Say we should keep going before it gets darker. Friend agreed so fast he cuts me off. Yeah bro, me too. X. Cross clearing to poplar stand. Begin walking uphill. Cannot shake feeling. As cheesy as it sounds, it felt like we were being watched. At this point I noticed the quietness I mentioned above. But like, really quiet. Normally you'd hear the odd bird song at this time of day. Some species like to talk shit before bed. Nothing. Start to edge on panic. Stop what should be about halfway uphill before a turn. Around the turn is a sewage grate. You can smell when you're getting to the halfway point. It is very distinct. Gross. Look at friend. Dude, I don't feel good. Friend nods. Let's try to pick it up a little. I want to get home. Friend nods again. I can tell by the look on his face he is barely holding it together. Alright, I better just keep him focused on moving. Approach turn, no sewage grate. Shit, we are going the wrong way. Turn around and round the turn. Grate on this side, the wrong way. What the shit? Friend begins to breathe heavily. Calm him down. It'll be okay, man, it's fine. We just need to go this way. Don't know what else to do. We make it up the hill without further incident. Walk to the gas station to pick up pop. Decide to get a slice of pizza from a nearby shop instead, try to shake it off. Friend starts to feel better after some food and water. Unrelated to this story, but anons, if you ever experience something frightening and need to calm down, or need to comfort someone, make them drink water. The getting people a hot drink after trauma meme exists for a reason. Your primal brain calms down when you are eating and drinking, because to your animal brain, food and drink mean you are safe. Animals who are in danger don't stop for a snack. My friend looked pretty upset back there. What's up, dude? Friend takes a breath and looks at the floor. He doesn't want to look at me. Dude, I saw an animal or something I had never seen, and I think it was following us. What, like a mangy coyote or something? Sometimes the park gets bears and cougars and stuff, but they're pretty reclusive. Friend seems agitated. No, man. It was definitely not an animal I've seen before. I've seen pictures of those and shit. I know what they look like. He's a good kid, not the type of kid to swear. This kind of throws me. Ask him what he means. He starts to look up at me, but settles squarely on my chest. It tried to wave me over to him, man. At this point, I got pinhole vision and had to sit down and drink water myself. The rest of that night wasn't super interesting. We decided not to talk about it further and walked back home to mine. We just played Halo online and talked about girls for the rest of the night. After a few months, I kind of wrote this off as my friend making stuff up. We didn't really hang out after that, and I lost track of him after high school. He was kind of religious, so I chalked it up to him seeing stuff and deciding to go a different direction in life. But more recently, I had another thing happen that made me reconsider. Be 6 or 7 years ago during Xmas break. Be 19. One of my dogs, a little terrier named Seamus, cute little bugger, crawls on me and starts gurring. Wants a walk. It's dark at this point, like 11 p.m. Get light-up collar, leash, and jacket. Let's fucking go. Seamus. Take Seamus to the field of a nearby middle school, the one my friend and I had both gone to. Walking around reminiscing, sudden feeling of dread. Ah shit, here we go again. Bring hands up for a second. Catch myself. Think to myself, dude, you're planning on fist fighting right now? Look around, dumbass. Do that. At first, the coast seemed clear. At first. Look on the roof of the library wing of the building. Movement. I freeze in place, start calling Seamus over quietly. Good boy is trembling as he approaches. I scoop him up and zip him into my jacket. Look back up. It's looking at me. Hunched over, pallid-looking person. Not wearing anything. Patchy baldness over body. Gaunt face. Not really close enough to make out facial features, but I did not see whites in its eyes. It's like -15 Celsius right now. It seems like it is walking on its knuckles and toes. It beckons me. It lifts a hand and waves me toward it. I shout at it, "Go away, go away!" It begins to shout back. It is not in any language. It is oscillating between sounds like a death metal singer and a person being tortured. I begin to book shit home. A guy in a nearby house comes out of his door and asks what's wrong. I tell him I saw a crazy guy or something over by the school. He goes inside to call the police. I sprint home without a single thought of staying to make a statement. I haven't seen it since.
I was walking along the road that leads away from my house in the dark of night in the middle of winter, without a jacket and only a t-shirt and jogging pants to keep me warm. The reason I was outside and alone during the night was because of a heated argument I had while at home. I was pissed and just decided to take off walking down the road to let off some steam, not even caring how freezing it was. Part of me hoping the cold would just kill me. To this day, I don't even remember what the argument was about or who it was even with. I just know I was angry about something. Anyways, as I was walking, the biting cold was beginning to numb my arms, so I started rubbing them in quick motions to help warm them up. This helped for a while, but it began to get rather tedious, so I just pulled my arms to the inside of my shirt, hoping this would better protect my arms from the cold. I cursed myself for being stupid enough to go out into the winter night without any type of jacket or coat. Anger makes people do some really idiotic things without even thinking. So here I was, pissed off and walking down the road in the dead of night, looking like an amputee with my arms tucked into my shirt, when I reached the rarely traveled railroad tracks. The road that led there was filled with potholes and cracks from lack of care. The town didn't bother to fix this road after blocking it off by getting rid of the railroad crossing and just replacing it with more rails, so no more cars could pass over it without losing a tire. The dark of nighttime made trees look like they were holes or tears in the fabric of reality. It was like looking into a black void. If you squint hard enough, you could see bats dancing around in the sky, having left their dank and wet caves to look for a meal. When I made it there, I realized that keeping my arms inside my shirt wasn't actually shielding them from the cold all that well, so I pulled them out and started rubbing them again. As I did this, I started walking alongside the railroad, sometimes balancing myself on the tracks like I was a little kid again. It was at this point that I decided to look further ahead of me instead of at the ground. I froze. A good distance ahead of me, I could see what looked like a flashlight sending out a beam of light into the darkness, being held by a tall, black silhouette. It was standing completely still and looking right in my direction. Whatever it was huge. It must have been more than 10 feet tall, and yet it was holding such a small flashlight. I couldn't tell exactly what it was because it was too dark to see much of anything. I stood there in terror, shaking and trembling uncontrollably. I was too scared to move, my arms were numb, my face was burning. The dark figure did not move, instead choosing to stand still and appeared to stare at me. We stayed like this for what felt like hours, staring at each other. My heart was beating incredibly fast. My mind was racing to find some logical explanation for what I was looking at, unable to find one. It was at this point that the thing started to move. The flashlight started bobbing up and down, and the silhouette looked like it was floating slowly towards me. Then real, unrelenting fear surged through my entire body, even worse than before. I felt like every part of my body except my arms was burning. I finally decided to turn around and start running. I didn't even take a moment to think, I just ran. For a moment, all I heard were the sounds of my feet hitting the pavement and my erratic panting, until I heard the sound of feet other than my own hitting the ground behind me. At this, my heart somehow managed to start beating even harder and faster. I broke out into a full sprint, put everything I had into running as fast as I possibly could away from whatever the hell was chasing me. I ran and ran for what felt like decades, the sound of my pursuer's feet never fading. The cold never disappears. The numbness in my arms never leaves. Eventually, I could see my house in the distance, getting closer with each step. I hoped to myself that the door was unlocked. When I reached the house, I immediately grabbed the doorknob and turned it as hard as I could. Thankfully, my prayers were answered. The door was unlocked. I flung the damn thing open, shut it, grabbed the keys, and locked it. I ran into the kitchen and took a knife from the rack, then walked over to the window to look outside, to see if I could spot the thing that had chased me. There was nobody outside, nobody. I wondered for a moment if I had just hallucinated the entire ordeal, but I didn't care. My whole body, especially my arms, were burning and stinging with pain from the moment I entered the warmth of the house. I was too scared to lay down, so I just sat in my room, knife in hand, waiting for something to happen. I wouldn't fall asleep till morning. Well, that's pretty much it. This is something that actually happened to me. To this day, I have no clue what the hell that thing was.
Hey /X/. I haven't actually been on /X/ for several months. But holy shitbags, I'm so pissed right now. I'm going to share a story about a scary, kind of, thing that has been happening to me recently. So I guess let's have a real spooky story thread. So here's my story. I live in the middle of nowhere. I typically work later into the evenings, usually until 10 p.m. In order to get home, I can go one of two ways. One way is a road that's pretty unsafe to drive during the winter. Many people avoid driving down it unless they absolutely have to, because there's been a lot of accidents and deaths during the winter. The other way is the way I've taken to calling Glitch Road. This road, it is in okay condition. Most roads in my city aren't in good condition, even though they're doing road work 3 seasons of the year. I've been told it's because the city has a lot more roads than needed. Since the city was built into a hill, the road is really curvy and hilly. There's one street light on the road just at the beginning. It's about a 4-mile drive from the beginning until I get to the road I live on, usually averages 5-7 minutes. I'll drive down the road during the day. It's absolutely fine. It's really a beautiful road during the day. It follows a river, and it's a really nice sight right after it first snows. During the night, this road is hell to drive down. I usually get done from work at about 10 p.m. By the time I reach this road, it's about 10:21 p.m. or so. I've looked at the clock enough to know this. On a good day, I'll get to the end of the road by 10:30 p.m. Then there's some fucking nights. Some nights the drive down this shitty road is about 20 minutes. This is why I call it the Glitch Road. There's a small patch of houses on the road, and that's about it. Starting that patch is an old barn, then a house that was for sale for 6 years, a house that was just built, a Japanese-style house, the house where one of the guys from the Rembrandts used to live. I'll be there for you, and an orange house to end the patch. There's some houses in between, but I don't remember them. On those weird nights, such as tonight actually, I'll turn onto the road. Every night, even when it's just a normal drive, the one street light is flickering like an asshole. The rest of the road is dark. I'll drive down the road, past the barn, past the house that was for sale for 6 years, past the rest of the cluster of houses. Then I'll drive on for several more minutes, past the barn, past the house that was for sale for 6 years, past the rest of the cluster of houses. Probably hate my life because I'm passing the barn for the second time. Now before I go further, I want to state there's no way to get turned around on this road. The road I live on is the first stop sign on that road. There's no fucking way. I've passed that barn 8 times one night trying to get home. Other times I won't drive by it at all. While also driving down the road, there's sometimes headlights in the oncoming lane. I'll never pass a car. I'll see the headlights as I drive around the curves, almost as if someone is driving in reverse in the oncoming lane. Other times I'll see cars drive across the road in the distance, like they're crossing an intersection. Except that there isn't an intersection where they crossed. Sometimes it'll be at a bridge, so I'm doubtful it'd be someone off-roading. There are times when I'll see a car turn, as if onto another road or driveway, without there actually being a driveway or road. When driving around the curves, sometimes I'll see headlights through the trees, and when coming around, there isn't a car. This has been happening since October. It usually happens when I get done at 10 p.m. When I get done at 7 p.m. or some other time, it's a perfectly fine drive. I hate this road. I'm considering taking my chances driving up the deadly road instead. On a completely separate note, I used to listen to FM radio in my car. Before I got a car stereo, now the radio doesn't work. Out of curiosity, I switched to AM to see what kind of stations are there. There was one I found, and it gave me chills. When I first found the station, it was 10 minutes of some woman crying and screaming, hammering, and a young child singing in some language I didn't understand. I don't know why, but it brought tears to my eyes. My nose gets really congested when I cry, so I've learned not to cry. But I just couldn't stop from crying. After 10 minutes, it went silent for a few seconds, and then there was static. I wanted to know what it was, so I tried to find it at other times. I've only been successful 4 times finding this station between the months of October and December, when I got the stereo. The other 3 times were similar to the first, except the 4th time there was also gurgling.
Hey, /X/ I have a few things I've been curious about for some time, and I would like to know if anyone could help me find some answers to my past experiences. For a little bit of background on all this, I used to live in a different state but moved to Virginia roughly 3 years ago, and over the last 3 years I had some weird, spooky experiences. Also, this is actually my first Greentext. Be me, early high school days, new 2-story house, live on substantially sized property with family in dense forested area, with little quite open area. Many trees are massive, live deep in the sticks away from most people in the state. Life is better than it used to be. The land was elevated and there was a huge driveway that circled around the front of the house that connected to the quiet-ass road downhill. Arrive at this new house in the middle of winter. Our 2 dogs, Jax and Piper, enjoy the large open area outback that has been specifically cleared out by previous owners for their dogs. Whole area is surrounded by a very large 5-foot wooden metal fence that keeps them in. Within the first few weeks, stuff begins to happen. One night there was a loud, violent banging on our door. Manages to wake up or freak out everyone. Motion lights aren't turned on. Dogs sit there silently when in most cases they would bark loudly. Cats staring out windows. Dad and brother check with flashlights and 12-gauge. No one there. WTF? .jpg. Everyone settles down, but I can't sleep. Goes to the kitchen with my brother for a snack 10 minutes later. Knocking happens again, but even more violently. Continues right until my brother and annoyed father open up the door. Royally freaked out and retreated into the room. Brother stays up pretty much all night. Fall asleep to knocking. Next morning, he claims that it continued for a few more hours. This next story is from my dad. Be daddy-o in bed with mom. 1 p.m. About to go to bed when he hears hooves going across the driveway. He goes closer to his opened window that has blinds covering it. Hears it getting closer to the point where he hears it snarling. Parents on the 2nd story of building many feet above the area elevated above land. Here scrambling up the overhang towards his window. He closes it almost immediately when he hears it come dangerously close. Parents don't sleep that night. This one really intrigued me, and I always wondered what the hell that thing was or might have been. Over time, my perception of the property would change, and I eventually began to get uncomfortable at certain times. Specifically near sundown, or at night since it was around either 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. that the dogs had to be brought into the garage since they were no longer allowed in the house. Though the level of light would change depending on the seasons with it, of course being darker and quieter during the winter months than the warmer months, either way I was creeped out since whenever I took the dogs an overwhelming feeling of dread would wash over me and sometimes my fight or flight responses would be triggered and I would run back to the house as quickly as possible. Garage was a large separate building about 33-ish meters away from the house. Be me bringing in Jax on summer night, nice and cool. Try to hurry the dogs into their mini homes in the garage. Get that done, but Piper got distracted by something and I had to drag her in. Close and lock the door. Begin cautiously walking from garage to house, constantly looking around while on the big driveway. Mostly silent as usual. Few bats fly over. Neat. Hear something from the tree line behind me. See nothing. I turn around and walk backwards since paranoid. It's completely silent now. Walk past a short tree on the right of me. Here's something from the land elevated backyard east of me. Freezes. Eventually I realize it's coming towards me. Run straight to the bottom door of the house and slam it shut and lock it without looking back. Things like this would continue sporadically over the weeks and months, but it was mostly just that feeling of being watched. Though whenever I heard the footsteps again, they always came from a different direction than the first, but sometimes it would repeat with slight difference. Tell parents about it after one of the incidents, but they never believed me for some reason and chalked it up to them and their story being connected to my fears. After a year, I realized that it happened more frequently in some seasons than others, but it would still just happen. Eventually, my mom apparently had seen silhouettes of people walking around the land before sundown, though it was only a few cases. As stated back and before the land was elevated, and so was the house itself thanks to all that, I initially felt quite secure in my room, but that would change. Be me. Just got done chatting with my girlfriend on the phone at around 10 p.m. Get on Xbox and watch stuff on Netflix. Hear knocking on the window next to me. Covered by blinds, but there was a small area where blinds broke since my autistic ass didn't know how to properly close blinds and broke it. Startled but not alarmed since it was not an uncommon occurrence. Heard more knocks. Continued to other window behind me by my bed. Got spooked and turned out the lights. Quickly stopped. Once I got into bed, the knocking would begin again but would move over from windows to where my head was while I was laying down. Here's another little one. One day my parents left to go out of town since my dad had a business trip and my mom likes going with him. My sister was gone that time too, so it was just me and my big bro. Be me. Wake up in the morning to my brother by my bed. Yo, I took the dogs out, but when I came back outside with their food, Piper was gone and the gate was not properly closed, so we have to find her. Good job, bro. He gets on the four-wheeler and rides off trying to find Piper while my barely awake ass runs out back outside to lock the gate up. Runs off into forest in flip-flops because I couldn't find shoes, constantly checking legs and feet for ticks in tall grass and avoiding possible snake holes. Travels through the forest. Brother calls my name. Almost falls straight into horribly mutilated deer corpse. Big-ass buck ripped apart, missing its head. Not an expert on dead animals, but looks very recent. Fucks off from dead deer and hops on four-wheeler with bro. Found Piper an hour later at the closest neighbor's house who was about a mile away. The dog is covered with small children. Happy dog. Though I told my parents about the dead deer, they never thought too much of it, but after a day or three I went out there to check if it was there. Find nothing. Not even evidence of it being there. Small trees knocked over where it was. This was in the twilight of our time in Virginia after all the other events by some time. This was less than a month before we moved out. Be me, early fall night, only one at home, empty in general since my sister and brother moved out. In my parents' room, using the bathroom since they had the best toilet in the house. Window cracked open, thinking about life. Hear sounds below, listens closely. Utter dread. Sounds like low guttural muttering below. No thank you. JPG. Sounds move from around the driveway and yard below. Dogs from the garage start going nuts, and it's not hard to hear them since Jax is a huge mix between a Great Dane and Chocolate Lab, and Piper is a decently sized Bernese mountain dog. Muttering stops after a few minutes. Motion lights go on. Urge to use the toilet is gone now at this point. The feeling of dread subside. Hold up in my parents' room since it has a good view of everything. Hear Jax whining and yelping. Dog gotta go .jpg. Go down with a big-ass flashlight. The trusty family flashlight has been around longer than me. Let Jax out since Piper didn't want to leave her hut. Still fearful about whatever the hell I just heard. Jax keeps on stopping and looking off into the tree line west of us. Shine light and see nothing in the trees. But my boy Jax needs to piss, and that's mighty important for a big dog to do, and it would be kinda cruel to leave him in there like that. Get up to the gate and let him in. A few minutes later, he comes back to me wagging his tail. Rush him down as kindly as possible. He stops only once this time, though he growls back into the tree line. Worried.jpg. Nudge the dog a few times and he stops. Back in the garage, the dog goes back to the hut. Turn on outer garage lights for a minute to feel safer. Feel okay. Quickly turn them off. Close and lock the garage door. Run, 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 run. My fat ass goes to warp speed and gets to the bottom level side door. Curiosity and fear gets the best of me, and I shine light from flashlight downhill towards the man-made path my dad made. Eyes. Big eyes almost up to my height. At first I think it might just be a big deer. Eyes shine orange, but there is no movement from that thing. Just outside of the tree line, but can't see beyond its eyes. Realize that the part of the downhill dip is at least 3 feet down. I was 5'10" back then, so that thing might have been 8 feet or taller. Realize this while frozen staring back. Slowly go back inside without taking eyes off fucker. Still doesn't move. Close curtains and tactical nope back inside home. Make sure every window is covered as much as possible and retreat to my room out of fear. They said it might have just been a fox in the trees, but the ones by the entrance of the path had no branches for anything to climb, and I don't see why or really even how one could climb up there. This is all stuff I could get off the top of my head, and I'm happy to answer any questions you guys might have, but for now I stop typing and eat some dinner.
A story from a couple years back. What's up? A little bit of a disclaimer here, and what follows is entirely true. Firstly, I've never been huge into legends and paranormal stuff, but I've run out of logical explanations for this. I guess I'm posting this for a second opinion, if nothing else. So, a friend of mine and I grew up together. He shall remain nameless, but for the sake of this story, I'll refer to him as Bud. Went to the same school, graduated together, went into the military at the same time, although different branches, and got out at roughly the same time. He was in the Navy and got out a few months after I did, since he extended. I'm already getting off track. My apologies. So, when we came back home, mine and his parents had divorced. We didn't have any reason to go back to our hometown and moved to the county just north of us. I live in the northern Midwest. I have all my life. In any case, maybe a year or two ago, Bud and I decided to take a little trip down to the area we grew up in, take a stroll down memory lane and all that. This was later in the year, late fall, early winter to be exact. My memory as to what month is sort of shitty, but I'll ask him when I get the chance. Basically, Bud was driving us around the area. And what you have to understand about the area is it consists of a shitload of small towns sandwiched together, and then a bunch of forest, lakes, and general wilderness for miles in any direction. We were driving around these back roads. Both of us knew the area pretty well. Eventually, we got to this heavily forested area and decided to walk around the woods since we're outdoorsy like that. It was sort of getting later in the day, but we still had a decent amount of light. We also each had our pistols. Bud had one spare mag for his Glock, while I had a few for my 1911 in my shoulder rig, because I think I'm John Wayne sometimes. We also each had a flashlight and a knife, while I had 2 king-size Reese's in my jacket and a couple of packs of smokes and 2 lighters. We also had some basic cold weather clothing, jackets, our combat boots, gloves, etc. We'd been walking around the woods for a while, shooting the shit about this and that for about an hour. We were at least a mile, if not more, into the thing. Out of nowhere, a blizzard came down on us. Wind picked up, and we had to scream at each other to communicate. Flashlights didn't help much. Of course, we got lost and couldn't make our way back to the car, and we were getting really cold, really fast. Now is where shit gets weird. We were arguing about where we came from when we both heard this noise, which made us notice the wind had died down for a second. It sounded like footsteps that neither of us were making. The wind picked back up, and we couldn't hear shit, and we were both getting tired and could feel ourselves shutting down from the cold. Bud basically said, "We need shelter or we're gonna die," and I agreed. Long story short, we made a shitty little pine bough igloo combination shelter. Basically just made a shell with boughs and piled snow on it. We managed to make a little fire and all that. We were sharing the Reese's, scared as shit, guns drawn, because we both could hear something moving around just outside our shelter. At the time we thought maybe a deer or something, but that wouldn't really make sense considering most critters don't like to move when they can't see well. Neither of us slept, needless to say. The blizzard ended in the morning, and we had to dig out way out of the shelter. Immediately, we smelled something that can only be described as rotting copper and really dirty fur. We looked around a bit for a carcass. We didn't find any such thing, but we did find tracks that neither of us could identify. Basically, they looked like someone had sawed their feet in half, lengthwise, and broken every bone in their foot, and walked around. To hurry things along in this story, we made our way out and drove out of Dodge. We haven't been back to the area since. Forgot to mention. I should say that the track sort of seemed to pace back and forth, traveling in a circle all around our little camp. Some got within 3 feet before the tracks sort of backed off again. It had to have seen and heard us, and we could hear this really weird, struggled sort of raspy breathing. Now that I think about it, the air felt really heavy, and for as windy as it was, really still.
From what I've read of all the missing 411 shit and no one can explain what it is or what it can be, since sometimes it seems like completely different creatures, but you guys probably entered some interstice between this and another dimension. A lot of the missing 411 stories begin with abrupt changes in weather. The only thing that's a little different is when people who've experienced this have made it through alive. Their ordeal that felt like it lasted 10 to 15 minutes was actually hours in our home dimension.
Okay, /x/. I have been visiting this board for about 4 years, and I thought it only fair to share this story. I met up with an old group of friends yesterday, and we started talking about the past and when we were in high school. One of my friends brought up something that happened when we were in about 10th grade. Suddenly all of us started remembering it, and it freaked us out. I have no idea what it could have been. We have come up with multiple theories, but I think it's X's time to decide. The setting was this. There were about 6 of us, all about 16 years old. We were hanging out at my friend Sean's house. It was probably around 1 a.m., middle of winter, and all of us were hanging out in his family's hot tub. We were all either drinking or smoking a cigarette at the time. I'm gonna green text the rest of this. All of us relaxing and making jokes, just being dumb kids. Sean's dog, Josie, was in her kennel across the other side of the yard, probably about 40 yards away, barking like normal. All of us yell at Josie to be quiet. Josie is dead silent. One of our friends, Cameron, is getting drunk and decides that he wants to go jump in the snow, then dive back into the hot tub. He runs off. We can only see his silhouette from a lamp in the middle of the yard. Cameron screams, then jumps back in the hot tub, drunkenly laughing. Another friend, Josh, decides he's gonna do it next. Before he gets out, we hear a scream near Josie's kennel. I get a really cold feeling in my chest. That was exactly Cameron's scream from a minute ago. We all get dead silent and turn towards the fence near the kennel. All of a sudden, something that looks like a man jumps over the fence, basically vaults over it with ease. We all scream. Some of us scramble out of the hot tub while others just stare in disbelief. Some dude just jumped over that fence. I want to point out here that the fence is solid wood and 10 feet tall. Behind it is a small ledge leading to a deep ditch that is at least 6 feet down. There would not be a way to make it from the ditch to the fence and then easily vault over it. Josie is barking and yelping. Sean is trying to run towards his dog, but we pull him inside. We instantly wake his family and tell them about the thing jumping over the fence. Sean's dad grabs his rifle. The rest of us grabbed our paintball or airsoft guns we had been playing earlier that day. We followed his dad outside. Josie starts running towards us, whining, then runs into the house. Sean's dad starts cussing at us, asking who let Josie out of the kennel. We all scream that we didn't. Sean tells us to wait there, and he goes to the kennel. After we hear the dad say we can come over, we walk over. The dad starts yelling at us, saying he told us to stay where we were. All of us are freaking out, babbling about how we heard him say to come over. The dad says, "Which one of you messed with the kennel's door?" The lock was one of those metal gate things with a hinge lock you can lift up and down. The lock had been completely bent and broken. This is where we all agree it's time to nope back inside the house. His family goes to sleep rather quickly. None of us boys can get rest. Josie stays with us all night, always keeping an eye on us and never leaving the room. At first light, Sean and I are still awake and decide we want to go check out the other side of the fence. Next morning, as soon as it gets light out, Sean and I are the only ones still awake. As we head to the door, Josie growls at us with this weird guttural sound. Sean looks at Josie saying, "She never has sounded like that before." We head out to go check behind the fence. We get around the area where that thing would have jumped over it. All that was around was a set of paw prints, probably bobcat, and 3 barefoot human footprints. Sean and I don't know what to make of it, deciding to tell the others later on that it was just a bobcat. That's it. Everyone seemed to be okay with the bobcat story, and we put that behind us. My theory after being on /x/ for a while is that it was some sort of skinwalker thing that killed Sean's dog, took the form of Josie, and stayed that way. There are other stories about weird shit involving Josie after this all happened, if anyone is interested. So I've been friends with Sean since about 3rd grade. We grew up with each other's families as well. Josie has always been a weird dog. She runs in a figure 8 shape around her kennel, until now the ground is hard, and there is a clear outline of the track she takes every time. After the event of whatever let her out of her gate, she stopped running that route. She used to run it hundreds of times a day, but she just stopped. They took her to the vet because something was obviously wrong, but the vet said it was old age. Seems like a logical view, but I never believed it. Josie was always a loving dog. She would curl up with you on the couch and try to lick you all the time. That also stopped. She hates laying next to someone besides the mom of the house now. After letting you all know what a sweetheart this dog was, here is an actual story of something that scared me. Another night of all of us hanging out at Sean's, watching movies after a night of airsofting. We hear an animal scream outside. Rush out there, instantly smell skunk. Fucking great. Josie is staring down a skunk. We see 2 dead skunks near Josie's body. Things had to be only a few months old. The skunk lunges at Josie. Cameron has his airsoft gun, so he gets ready to shoot the skunk. Before he can even aim, the fight is over. Josie ripped out its throat in less than a second. It was so precise and quick, it kinda put us all off guard. The dad tried to grab the bodies after putting gloves on. Josie snarls at him. She takes each body back to her kennel, one at a time. Stand guard over them the entire night. Won't let us get near her to try to clean her up and get that smell off of her. The next morning, Josie is gone. We can't find her. She shows up around 4 p.m. No trace of the smell. Josie acts kind to us. Josie is back to normal. Josie starts running in that damn figure 8 track again. Not a crazy story, but Josie seemed to remember who she was after she returned. Josh and I are texting, and we just thought of something seriously fucked up that happened. Again at Sean's. And that makes a lot more sense if that thing wasn't really Josie. This was between the first and second story. Sean's family was building a huge garage on their land. Structure was built, but the inside wasn't insulated or anything like that. About 10 of us are chilling in the garage for the night. Mini space heater and sleeping bags for all of us. Our friend Zane had to take a piss late at night, and as he walked by the window, something human-looking ran past it very quickly. It was visible in the dark as it ran by. Zane freaked out, locking the door closest to him, and yelled at us to lock the door where we were since it was running around the corner heading to our side. We heard tons of noises from the garage doors for about an hour. Finally, we man up. Basically, all of us had to take a piss really bad. We snuck out the back door to end up near the dumpster. We would take turns either pissing or watching the surrounding area with our paintball guns. We heard something step on leaves around the corner. Cameron yelled at whatever it was better to show itself. All of us were shaking and terrified. Josie whimpered around the corner, looking at us. Sean yelled at Josie to come here, and Josie ran towards us and went behind us. We all snuck back into the garage with Josie following us inside. We didn't hear any noise the rest of the night. We let the fucking thing in. Alright, this happened when I was about 20. This story involves my best friend in the dorms, Caleb, and another good friend named Alex. All three of us were chilling in the common room of the dorms, swapping scary stories. I brought up the Josie story and a couple others. This story got a few people to stop and listen to our stories, till there were about 10 or 15 people in the room listening. One guy was a new guy named Jesse. He was a short black guy who was pretty muscular. Overall was a cool guy who got along pretty well. After we had run out of stories, Jesse told us he only had one creepy thing happen to him. He has grandparents in Virginia, and about 2 years ago his grandpa passed away. Here's the story he told us. His grandfather had a rocking chair that he sat in every night. The family dog always sat at his owner's feet and would follow the grandpa everywhere. Even after the grandpa passed away, the dog would go to the rocking chair at 9:32 am and lay down for a couple hours. The grandma could tell the dog was depressed and missing her husband. About a week after he passed, his rocking chair started rocking at 9:32 every night. This freaked the grandma out until one day, she had someone take the rocking chair and go set it in the barn. After that, the dog would head to the barn at 9:30 every night and would return a few hours later. When Jesse visited, he asked his grandma if she ever followed the dog. The grandma had been too scared, but Jesse decided he was going to go that night. Jesse and his little brother followed the dog, whose name is Rascal, into the barn. Rascal went and curled up at the foot of the rocking chair, where it had been set in the far left side facing away from the door. Sure enough, the chair started rocking and scared the shit out of Jesse and his brother. They tried to walk closer and stop the chair from rocking, only to have Rascal snarl and attempt to bite them. Jesse and his brother left the barn. After being told this story, Caleb, Alex, and I told Jesse he was bullshitting us. Jesse swore to us that it was the truth. This is where I wish I could have just accepted it, but since it was almost spring break, I told him we should all drive down there. We had been wanting to go somewhere but hadn't decided where. Sure enough, the next week we had headed out to Virginia. The car ride was uneventful. Nothing exciting. Just Alex, Caleb, Jesse, and I driving for a couple days. Caleb had family on the way down there, so we stayed with them one night. It is going to take me a while to type out exactly what happened that 3 days we were at his grandma's house. I don't want to rush this story or leave out anything. Give me some time. We got to his grandma's house. We can just call her Dotty. Anyways, we got there right around 5:30 that night. Dotty welcomed us to the house and Rascal ran up to us wagging his tail. I don't know what breed he was. It was a definite mix of some cow dog and a lab. He had dark brown fur and one blue and one brown eye. Really sweet dog. Anyways, Dotty served us dinner, and we were really grateful, asking her how she was doing and what is there to do for fun in the town nearby. Then Alex couldn't control himself anymore and blurted out, "So is it true that there is a rocking chair in the barn?" Dotty was caught off guard, put down her fork, grabbed her napkin and glanced at Jesse. Jesse wouldn't look at her. You could tell he was embarrassed. Dotty sighed and told us, "I really don't know what he told you, but I just think it's a bunch of lies. George, her husband, is in heaven and he is not haunting some old chair." She left the table, tears in her eyes, and didn't come out of her room the rest of the night. We thought about going to check it out that night, but I was tired and thought it'd be in bad taste. But sure enough, Rascal scratched at the door at 9:30 and I let him out. Soon after that, we went to bed, only to be woken up by Rascal scratching at the door to be let in by Jesse. That was the end of our first day there. The next morning, Dotty made us breakfast. I think she was just happy to have people to cook for. Alex and I were awake first, so we went into the kitchen. Alex apologized, and Dotty nodded that it was okay. I told her how Jesse told us the story, and I thought he was just trying to fit in. If we were upsetting her, we would leave. Dotty was understanding, saying she just missed George. Side note, I got word from Jessie a couple months ago that Dotty passed away peacefully in her sleep. R.I.P. I asked her if there was any truth to the story Jessie told us. She nodded and said that she had gone out to the barn once with Rascal, watched the dog go and lay down at the chair, but then it started rocking and she left. I told her we would like to check it out that night. She agreed, just giving us rules to not touch Rascal or do anything to the chair. I accepted that and told her that we would be okay with that. Everyone started waking up, so we spent the day hanging out. Nothing exciting happened until that night. I'm gonna Greentext the night. We all got ready about 9 p.m. The barn was nearby, but it was very cold that night. It was pouring rain. Caleb was not buying this story and was ready to disprove it. Alex was obviously terrified. Jesse was ready, reminding us the rules we agreed to. We headed out with Rascal at 9:30. Rascal booked it to the barn, so we ran our asses off through the rain to keep up. By the time we got to the barn, Rascal was already curled up by the chair. The sight of the chair creeped me out, just knowing the story behind it. We had less than a minute before 9:32. We all decided to spread out to see if anything would be causing the movement if it happened. Jesse got close to the chair, resulting in Rascal growling very aggressively. 9:32. The chair instantly started rocking without warning. Not even a slow rock, but as if someone was sitting in it relaxing after a long day. None of us moved. This couldn't be happening. We all stood around afraid to move for about 5 minutes. Alex grew a huge pair and walked towards the chair. We all yelled at him, "Don't you fucking touch it!" Alex grabbed the chair and instantly a bunch of things happened. As soon as Alex touched the chair, everything stopped. It felt like time stood still. It was quiet. Then Rascal started howling, almost like he was crying. The barn door slammed shut. Wind started howling out of nowhere. Jesse grabbed Alex and they started running to the door. Caleb was frozen in fear. I didn't do anything. I was still in shock. Rascal still was whining. Then the chair tipped over. I ran out of there as fast as I could, caught up with Alex and Jesse. They were out of breath right outside the back door. I started getting a lot of questions yelled at me. Where was Caleb? What happened? Did Rascal stay? Caleb and Rascal came out a couple minutes afterwards. Caleb looked at us and just said, "I fixed it." Caleb went to bed. We all sat up wondering what happened. I'll tell you about the final day and what had happened after we left in the next post. We woke up around 11 the following morning. Caleb was awake and wanted to head out early. We all were asking him what happened. He said he'd tell us after we left. We left after saying goodbye to Dotty and Rascal. We got in the car and finally Caleb spoke up. What happened after we left? Caleb was alone with Rascal in the tipped-over chair. Caleb slowly walked over to the chair. Rascal stopped howling and glared at him and bared his teeth. Caleb put the chair back up, which stopped Rascal's growling. Caleb got Rascal to get out of the barn. As he was leaving, he said, "I'm sorry, George, we meant no disrespect." As he turned away, he heard a male voice yell, "Leave." Caleb just said, "Okay." Caleb went to close the door, but a huge wind slammed it shut. Caleb admitted he was terrified and wanted to leave. That's it. I was messaging Jesse throughout typing this story asking for details and getting facts straight. I just finished talking to him. I asked what ended up happening to Rascal. Apparently he was gone when they ended up finding Dotty's body. Probably ran out into a field and died. Hope Dotty, George, and Rascal are all in heaven together. R.I.P.
Be me. I am 25 years old, Latin American guy, in a bullshit spiritual journey, traveling alone across the Patagonia. It gets snowy, stuck in a God-forgotten highway, hitchhiking without any success. 5 p.m, getting darker, hungry and thirsty. Start to worry of having to sleep in a frozen ditch on the side of the road. A couple of lights appear in my direction. Make the thumbs up signal with a poppy face. Car stops. Hey there, where are you heading? Next town? Oh, I'm heading to my villa, Traful. It's a beautiful destiny if you are traveling. It's a must-go. Never hear of it, but don't have much of a choice.jpg. Jump to the car. Guy in his 40s, pretty messy look. Start to tell me how this villa is paradise on earth. Tell me the story of how he left everything in the city to move there. Open a small convenience store. Tell me all about it with a smile on his face the entire time. Get there. 200 people at the villas. Mountains, lake, and enormous woods all around the 5-block town. The most beautiful landscape you can imagine. Crystal lakes and snowy mountains. Lord of the Ring kind of shit. Guy starts to say hello to every single person we come across in town. Every single one is happy, joyful, and greeting each other. They are so nice to me. Get myself in a free camping area. Nobody it's there. Start to feel a weird atmosphere. The woods are silent, and I can't sleep. Full moon. For some reason, it's getting hotter in my tent. It's winter in the South WTF.Ra. Next morning, I head to the store of the guy who picked me up. I start to look at the light post along the dirt roads, full of signs of missing people in every language, German, Spanish, and English. Every single one was a hitchhiker, like me. Start to have an eerie feeling and a pretty bad vibe. I arrived at the convenience store because I was broke and hungry, looking for a donation.give. Guy asked me if I had the chance to hike through the woods, tell him that I have to keep going to the next town. Suddenly, his face went off, became furious out of nowhere, and asked me why in the hell I wanted to come here if I didn't want to stay. If I had known you would leave so soon, I would never have picked you up. Mr. Truffle would not like this. His face was changed, almost filled with hate. Nope, out of that weird town. He screams, I have to walk if I want to exit. 4 hours of hike through the dirt roads out of the villa. Get to the main highway. I'm 100% convinced that I escaped from a cult villa or some twisted shit.
Living with my father. Our home was in the middle of the forest. We have only a few neighbors. We have a forest of our own. Behind our forest there is a large field. On the field there lives an old couple. The couple has a dark past. Very dark indeed. Wife murdered their 2 sons in the 80s. She drowned them in a well filled with icy water. She was mental. Back to the story. It's winter. Because we live in Northern Europe, it gets really cold and dark in the evenings. Me and my dad were chilling by our house, watching stars, listening to nature. We could hear a terrific scream. The scream was coming from behind our woods, where the screwed-up couple lives. Oh shit. It's not possible to see directly at the field, but we could see the sky above the field. The sky was red like fire. Rest of the sky was night black. We could hear barking. Help! Someone shouted. It was probably a woman. The whole atmosphere was chilling. We were frozen. Start to hear loud snapping sounds from our forest. It's getting closer. Let's go inside and on. We went inside. The sky stayed red for a few minutes. Then the noises stopped. What the hell just happened? I have no clue. The next summer, it's 3 a.m. Lying in my bed trying to get some sleep. Dad is sleeping upstairs. I could hear him snoring. Someone opens our front door. Heart starts to pound. Door closes. Nobody came in. I tried to calm myself by saying maybe it was just a wind. Door opens again and closes right after with a loud bang. Didn't sleep much that night. The psycho lady who lives on the field has a creepy habit. She wears white dress and goes to a lake where she drowned her sons. She lights few candles and just wanders around the fields. She does this only when it's full moon.
Been thinking about this a lot lately. It's an old memory. 8 years old at a summer camp, for whatever reason the rangers and staff take us for a walk in the middle of the night. One of the other kids spots an electrical storm off in the distance. Turn around and look at the clouds in the distance and see flashes of light and lightning without the sound of thunder. Weird. Think nothing of it and continue walking. We all have torches and the sky is, mostly, crystal clear because no light pollution. One of the ranger I'm walking next to points off in the distance and half-heartedly says, "Look at that UFO over there." Look over to a hill off in the distance and see brightly lit disc hovering and moving across the top of it. The thing is lit up like a Christmas tree and just sort of sliding across the top of the hill. All of a sudden, the guides and rangers decide we are leaving right now, and everyone starts heading back. A few of the girls are scared, and to be honest, so was I. On the way back to camp, we were walking up a slight slope near a big old tree on our right. I remember this next part because it scared me shitless. Silence. All of a sudden, a Harrier jet screams overhead of us so close it has to dodge the tree we were walking past. Children screaming, staff freaking out. We all ducked down instinctively, this thing was so low and loud. Book it back to camp. Staff struggling to contain us because we are all trying to run. Never went to summer camp after that. Found out years later the place we stayed in was a hot spot for all kinds of weird shit. UFOs, strange lights in the sky, crop circles, etc. Also currently live near a so-called hotspot, but I have never seen anything. Only been here a couple of months.
I've never posted on this board before, so please forgive my ignorance if I should have posted this in another thread. But I didn't see anywhere that my story might go. I've put off telling people about this because when I do, they merely imply I'm insane. This story is concerning paranormal experiences with technology. I'm not certain that this was a true paranormal experience or merely a case of synchronicity, but it disturbed me and would like to know what you think and if you've experienced anything similar. Be me. Late December 2016, in Boston for school. Over the past few weeks, my classmates have been talking about a new pizza place that had opened nearby. So close people sometimes go there between classes. Flying home for Christmas the next morning, so I decided to try their pizza. Order the pizza online. Winter storm warning, far below freezing and windy. No, the pizza place is very close by, so I only put a light coat on. Search for pizza place on my phone. A shitty old iPhone I bought used online. Phone tells me it's quite a few blocks away, much farther than I thought. I thought that I was mistaken about its location and decided to press on. I like the cold anyways. Walk to a place indicated by phone. No pizza place in sight. Streets almost completely deserted. Not surprising given the weather. Phone tells me to go into a dark alleyway. No lights in the alley. It's completely dark after the first dozen yards or so, very confused. Walk up and down the block a few times to see if I missed it somehow. Can't find it. Check street signs. Street is correct. Don't know the city very well. Kind of a shut-in when not in class. Enter address from phone multiple times. Double, triple check. Phone leads me down the alley each time. Copy-paste the address from their website. Phone leads me to the alley. Pick only slightly related. About 45 minutes have passed since leaving my apartment. Getting hungry and extremely cold. Starting to think the pizza place is a hole in the wall, and it really is down that dark alley. Return to the alley. Stare down the alley. Get a bad feeling about the alley. Getting even colder and hungrier just standing there. Enter address one last time. Phone wants me down that alley. Seriously considering checking out the alley. Local comes up behind me. Hey, what are you doing there? I'm looking for a pizza place. Do you know where it is? No pizza down there, kid. Nothing you want to find down there. No clue how to respond to this, so I just thank him and head back towards my apartment. Decide to search for the pizza place one last time. Completely different route this time. Indicates a side street only a block away from my apartment. Follow the route. It's the pizza place. Pizza is cold. Am I reading too much into this, or did my phone want me to go into that alley? I somehow got the feeling that when that man talked to me, and I made up my mind, my phone gave up on whatever was going on, and this has never happened before or since. Has anything like this ever happened to any of you? What would have happened to me if I had gone down that alley? I've had 2 other paranormal experiences, but they were completely unlike this. Pick isn't the alley, but this is what it looked like.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel, as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.